Welcome to the Great Traits Project podcast. We investigate the character traits that drive great achievements and reveal the mindset behind success. Throughout these podcasts, we introduce you to remarkable individuals from the world of sport, business, the military, the arts, science, technology, groundbreaking explorers, and many more. We shed light on how they behave and what they believe, and we discuss their attitude to life. In November 2016, we released our first book, which is called Great Traits. The book reveals the 5 character traits that make successful people tick, and it can be found on Amazon by searching for Great Traits, or search for the author's name, Tobias Harwood, which is spelled Tobias, and then Harwood, Harwood. All the author's proceeds from the sale of the book are donated to the charity Walking with the Wounded. The reason why the proceeds are donated to the charity are explained in the opening chapter of the book. On this month's podcast, we meet Patrick Drake. Patrick is an entrepreneur and chef. He founded the revolutionary food delivery service HelloFresh. Patrick actually started his career wearing a suit and working for one of the most prestigious law firms in London. However, he quickly found that his love of food dragged him away from the boardroom and into the kitchen. While still working as a lawyer, he spent his evenings training in the kitchens of iconic restaurants in London, such as the Cuckoo Club and Brindisa, and he spent time working with Heston Blumenthal at the legendary Fat Duck restaurant. Recently, he has created an online cookery school called the 60-Second Chef, which teaches you all the cooking techniques you need to be confident in the kitchen. He also has a television show, which is available in 68 countries and airs on National Geographic and the Discovery Channel. And with that, I introduce you to Patrick Drake.
So I am Patrick Drake. I do quite a lot of things. Let me take it back a bit. So I started off as a lawyer at Clifford Chance and Goldman Sachs. Basically, I came out of university and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I saw all of my friends going into the city and I thought I want a piece of that action. So I got into that world for all the right reasons. I wanted to wear pinstripe suits. I wanted to have meetings because that sounded so glamorous to me. I wanted to be on conference calls because that sounded like the kind of thing a powerful person would do. So for all of those fantastic reasons, I plunged myself into Clifford Chance and Canary Wharf, hated it from day one, absolutely despised what I was doing. It was soul crushing. I was just paper shuffling and photocopying, all the usual stuff. It definitely wasn't Ally McBeal or LA Law, as I'd been led to believe. So looked for an escape route, and the escape route was, it was something I'd wanted to do for ages and something I'd always been fascinated by, which was cooking, more specifically teaching other people how to cook. I just love that feeling where you see that look in someone's eye when you've actually taught them something you know they're going to carry forward with them for the rest of their lives, and it's actually going to be genuinely useful rather than the contracts I was churning out. So I plunged myself into cooking. It's a very long, convoluted story, but the shortened story is that I went to my boss one day, told him that's what I want to do. And in fact, he said, "What are you going to do? You're going to go to a bank? You're going to go to another law firm?" I said, "No, I want to be a TV chef." He said, "I didn't know you did drugs." I'm like, "No, I don't." He's like, "Well, do you have any reason to suspect that this is something you might be able to do?" And I said, "Well, not really, but I'm pretty determined and I've written myself a little plan and I'm going to make it happen." And as I say, it's a massively long story, and which we might get into later, but it led up to the current day where now I'm the head chef and the co-founder of HelloFresh. So we're the world's largest recipe box service. We sent out about 8.5 million meals last month in 9 countries. And I also have a TV show which airs in 67 countries on Discovery and Fox. It was an adventure, 13-episode cooking adventure around Italy. And I have an online cooking school as well called the 60-Second Chef, which is the world's fastest online cooking course, if you can believe it. So yeah, that's the me in a nutshell.
Superb. So tell us about HelloFresh. How does that work exactly?
So it's a recipe box delivery service. What we do is we send you recipes every week, and we send you a chilled box of the exact fresh ingredients portioned out that you need to cook those recipes in about 30 minutes.
Perfect. So kind of it's great for someone that's not particularly experienced or a bit sort of novice-y or a bit intimidated by food.
It can be so many things to so many different types of people. When we first started a business, we had a very particular customer in mind, but then we discovered, of course, that your customer base is as diverse as are people's reasons for wanting to eat good food. So there are the people that have never cooked before and they want a helping hand through the cooking process, and we always write I made sure from day one that I wrote the recipes from the perspective of someone who isn't professionally trained and who would never assume people have knowledge. So I wouldn't tell people to butterfly the chicken, because what does that mean to somebody who's never handled a chicken breast or picked up a knife before? So it's about explaining this is how you butterfly the chicken, and congratulations, you just butterflied the chicken. So it supports people through the cooking process so they can really, really learn. But then there are people who are really experienced cooks, but they just don't have the time to go forage around for all of the ingredients that we have and the quality that we can find. So it's really useful for them as well, because they're cooking 3 or 5 new recipes a week. And even for someone who's experienced, to bring that kind of variety into your weekly menu is a lot of work. So it's about taking away all of the hassle, really, and just leaving you with the fun bit.
And what do you most like to cook for other people?
Simple food. I mean, it's the food that I've always developed for HelloFresh is very much the food that I would cook for myself or cook for friends and family, and that is just honest, simple, hearty food that just makes you feel loved. I think that's an underlooked quality in food. It's the kind of thing that you sit back from that meal and you feel full and satisfied and nourished. And you feel like, I'm super full right now, but I'm full of stuff that's going to power my body and give me what I need to get through what I've got to do, because that's for me, that's so important. During any given day, I burn through so many calories in just like running around like a headless chicken, doing all sorts of things. I can need constant feeding. Otherwise I get super hangry. So my cooking style very much is in line with what I need, for myself.
So what's your favourite meal personally?
It's got to be my mum's shepherd's pie. It's not even that it's the best shepherd's pie I've ever eaten, because I've got to say, sorry mum, but I think the one at the Ivy is pretty insane. But it's just the fact that my mum cooked it for me, and it has that nostalgic value as well.
So if you're sort of reaching out to novice cooks, what's a couple of principles to kind of help them overcome their intimidation?
I think the first thing, as with anything that you're trying to teach people, is to get yourself off your bloody pedestal and don't be wagging your finger at people and being teachery and didactic about it. You're standing next to them, you're hanging out with them, you're like, you know what, this is no big deal, let's just give it a go. Like, what's the worst that can happen? It's really taking away all of the jargon, like, brunoise, julienne, like, it's a freaking carrot stick. Yeah, it's like, let's all just chill out here. And I think that the cooking world particularly is clothed in so much pomp and tradition and all of these like fancy culinary terms. No wonder people are intimidated by it. And I think that's the thing for me, is just taking away all of that and saying, come on, like, this is no big deal, because there is no magic to it. Once you're taught something, once you're shown once, then you're like, that's the thing. I see this eureka moment with people. They're like, no way. What? Hang on. So you can just peel a piece of ginger using the edge of a spoon. That's amazing. I never thought of that. Yeah, it's great.
What's a chef that's really inspired you, or where do you get your cooking inspiration from?
I mean, I'd spent a bit of time working at the Fat Duck in Bray after meeting Heston Blumenthal one night, and that was amazing. Because it's the Fat Duck. I mean, it was like having a golden ticket to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, and they create magic there. Though they create magic through fairly regimented and mundane systems, because you're just going through. You'll be part of a dish. You'll be one person that's actually creating one constituent part of a dish, and maybe 8 people will be involved in that dish before it's actually made. So what you're doing is quite mundane, but still really inspirational to be there. But someone like Nigel Slater as well, just beautiful, simple, home-cooked food, nothing fussy, and just, he's so understated. I love just watching him, because he doesn't jump around and he's not shouting and he's not like throwing things in pans and whatever. He's just doing it really calmly and just letting the ingredients be the magic of his show, and they are. So it's people like that. So I really warm to humble people that just let what they do speak for them instead of having to speak for themselves.
And what's your favourite restaurant?
Favourite restaurant in the world is a little restaurant. Right, let's keep this on the DL. I want to be able to book a table there the next time we go. It's called D'Agino, and it's near the Parliament Square in a place called Vicolo Rossini in Rome. And they do this dish called tonarelli alla ciociara, and it's basically it's like a carbonara, but it has peas and mushrooms in it. And I think it's got guanciale in it, which is pig's cheek. So it's like a more it's just a more delicate version of pancetta. It's so delicious. The food. I mean, I eat the food and it brings tears to my eyes. That's how good it is. And I know that sounds incredibly melodramatic. I'm sure people will be listening thinking, "This guy, what is he talking about?" But genuinely, for me, if I eat something that really blows my mind on that level, I have that moment of, it's like a meditation. I'll close my eyes and I'll just sit there chewing and just being so mindful of that mouthful of food and so appreciative of the person who took the time to come up with the ingredients to make that recipe. It's so special to me. It's like being given the most amazing gift, because that is how important food is to me. And I honestly believe that every meal should be a celebration, no matter what it is and who it's for. Even if you're making yourself a piece of toast, it, again, sounds like a really over-the-top thing to say, but if I'm making myself a piece of toast, I'd make the piece of toast, I'd put it on a plate, I'd spread the butter on it, I'd spread whatever else on top of it, and then I'll cut it in half. But then, of course, at that point, you kind of put some crumbs all over the plate and it just looks a bit messy. So I'd put the piece of toast on another plate just because it wouldn't have any crumbs on it. And and I'd stack the pieces of toast nicely. And even if I'm just eating it myself. And I know, maybe it sounds over the top, but for me, I think food deserves a degree of respect and reverence. And I don't know, maybe I'm just a little bit like OCD as well. I think that might play into it slightly too. But, I just think you should, to give yourself good food in the same way as to do things for yourself which are good, to take yourself to the gym, to make sure that you give yourself holidays, to nourish your body and your mind, the things that you deserve to have as a person. And I think that when you don't take holiday, when you don't eat good food, when you don't take the time to do things which are good for you, that sends a really strong signal to you subconsciously that you're not deserving of those things, and then that and that's a really, really bad thing. It's not good for you. It's not good for your, if you want to be deep about it, it's not good for your soul. But if you want to just be like a bit more pragmatic, you say like psychologically, it's not good. You need to treat yourself well. You need to send that message to yourself that you are worth that treatment.
And I suppose that really is echoed in the fact that you ditched the pinstripe suits and made the difficult transition to becoming a chef. And can you talk us through that? Because I think many people out there have aspirations of walking into their boss's office and, slapping a resignation letter on the desk and walking out with a renewed sense of like vigor and freedom. But to have the guts to do that is huge.
It's funny because I remember I met this intern at HelloFresh. And it was the first day I'd met her. We were in the lift. I obviously hadn't eaten my breakfast and was feeling quite grumpy. And she said exactly the same thing to me. Patrick, it's so brave of you to leave your job in the city and go after this dream of being a chef. And I just shot a look at her and I said, do you know what? There's nothing brave about it at all. It's not about bravery. I tell you, it's about stupidity. It's about the fact that some people are willing to spend 40 years of their life doing a job about which they're apathetic and look back on a life of regret. And that's not me. And she just looked at me. She's like, "Oh, okay, it's nice to meet you." And I can't help myself because I feel so strongly about it. When people are apathetic about their one life on this earth, I will try and shake them out of it to start with. But if I don't see some willingness on their part, then and I just cut them because I can't deal with that. There is so little time that, you know, you have to make the most of it. So that was what spurred my decision. I was like, I'm not happy here. I've got to do something meaningful and purposeful and something that I just enjoy. I mean, it just sounded fun to do this. It wasn't, you know, it is about meaning and purpose and what have you, but it's just, you know, you want to be doing something that is fun and you enjoy. And I know that people say, oh, you can't, a lot of people say, oh, don't think about the money, go after what you're passionate about. And, you know, when you're in this position where you're looking up at that mountain, you're thinking, yeah, right, like, thanks for that advice. Like, it's easy for you to say, but it's true, because you need to follow something you're passionate about, because you're going to need the stamina that comes with that passion when you go through the hard times that you will go through. You will go through hard times as well, because frankly, if you're not failing at something, then I don't think you're trying hard enough. So how did I start? Well, basically, I just came up with this idea that I wanted to get into cooking. A friend of mine in Los Angeles actually had said that at her network they were looking for new formats for TV shows. So I said, I've got a funny idea for a cooking show. And I told her this idea, forgot about it. But a week later she called me up and said, you're not going to believe this, but they loved your idea and they think we should film a pilot. Why don't you pretend to be the chef? I said, yeah, like, screw it. Like, why not? What have I got to lose? I'm just sitting here in front of a revolving credit facility. Like it couldn't get any worse than this, surely. So I booked a flight to LA. I had 10 weeks to prepare. I'd never been in front of a camera in my life. I went home, started practicing everything out loud. So whether I was washing up or shaving or anything, I would actually talk out loud and describe the process. I need to put some soap on this plate whilst I scrub it because I need to create soap suds to cut through the grease. And, you know, you've got like my housemate in the background thinking, what is he doing? Like, he's literally lost the plot. And I was doing this and practicing recipes over and over again. And the next thing I know, I'm in LA 10 weeks later in front of an entire studio of people who are all there for me. The cameras and the producers and the lights and the sound and everything turns to face me. The director shouts action. And of course, I just shit myself. I mean, it was the most petrifying experience ever. My throat closed up. My heart was palpitating out of my chest. And I practically hyperventilated. And I got through it. But it wasn't the finest performance by a long way. And when I got back to the UK, nothing came of it. So I had this choice, like, well, either this is a fun story that I'm going to tell people down the pub, or I'm going to really go for it. So I said, no, I'm going to go for it. And so I wrote down on a piece of paper, this is what I want to do. This is the date by which I want to do it. I want to have a TV show. I want to be working in food for the rest of my life. And then I just wrote underneath it the steps I would need to take to get there, and just started working my way through the steps. And then you know, you work your way through the smaller steps, which are things that the top goal is something that is out of your control. Like you can't get that top goal until circumstances align. But the little steps underneath it, each of them is difficult, but they're within your control because there are things that the only barrier to entry for them is your willingness to work hard and make it happen and be proactive. So I worked my way through the steps, and then I knew that if I worked my way through those steps, then when the opportunity came, that thing that was out of my control, but when that came to me, I'd be ready to take it. And a lot of people say that luck is when opportunity meets preparation, and I believe that. You know, you have to have this blind faith in the preparation, and then you will get to your goal because that opportunity will come and you'll be ready for it. They say, hold the vision, trust the process. And again, I believe that entirely.
It's interesting how you say that you break it down specifically, because I think a lot of people are overcome by this idea of goal setting, and they're probably somewhat intimidated by the end goal, and it seems unattainable and unreachable. And, you know, to a certain extent, shifting from, you know, working for Clifford Chance to becoming a TV chef seems somewhat balmy to begin with. But the reality is obviously that if you break it down, that's your best opportunity of making it happen, isn't it? And I'm curious to know, in kind of conjunction with this, sort of like what motivates you personally?
Proving people wrong. I mean, like, I'll just be honest about it. I mean, I do get a kick out of that. And I knew that when I resigned from Clifford Chance before I stepped into my senior partner's office, I got my BlackBerry out because they were still a thing back in those days. And I sent an email to my boss. And the email was it was nothing apart from a link to the YouTube video of the TV pilot I'd shot in LA some months previous. And I walked in, and of course, having sent that, I was already committed to having that conversation. So when he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I've just sent you an email, actually, and it pretty much explains everything better than I could. And he turned round, flicked on this YouTube link, which went to the title sequence of the show, in which, in one of the scenes, I may or may not have been running down a beach half naked in LA, because it was under some kind of Baywatch spin to this TV show. I know it's really gross, I know, but anyway, you got to do what you got to do. And that's when he just looked at me as if to say, what the hell is this? And that video went viral amongst the secretarial pool in my building quite quickly. And then it got awkward and I just had to leave.
And so you for some time went through this process of, putting on the pinstripe suit in the morning, finishing work, then getting changed in the back of a taxi, ending up in a West End kitchen, serving probably the people that you'd just been working with.
Yeah, exactly. I did that for quite a while. I would work in a restaurant in Mayfair. At weekends, I'd work in Brindisa, which is this great Spanish restaurant in Borough Market. I worked in the fine dining kitchen of my law firm in lunchtimes in secret. So again, it was like a weird double life until one evening in one of those restaurants, I was walking out of the kitchen in said chef's whites and walked straight into a bunch of my colleagues who were walking in to entertain a client. They just looked at me. Again, there was a lot of times when people looked at me during that period of my life in just total bemusement and as if to say, just like, what are you doing and what are you wearing? What? Like, just explain yourself. And so that the secret was kind of out at that point.
How much self-belief do you have?
I have quite a bit of self-belief, but I'm not someone who has unswerving self-belief by any means. I have many times of self-doubt, and there's always the voice in my head which is constantly telling me I haven't done enough. You need to do more, you need to work harder, you haven't achieved enough yet. But what I lack in self-belief, I make up for it in dogged determination. So I just silence that voice in my head and say, I'm going to prove you wrong, which sounds like quite a schizophrenic thing to say, but I think everyone has that voice of self-doubt in their mind. So, when you say, what's your motivation? I say proving people wrong. One of the things is kind of like to prove myself right. A lot of my motivation is internal. It's about, I want to prove something to myself, I suppose, that I can do this, that if I set my mind to something, I can make it happen.
What do you think is the hardest thing you've ever done?
I honestly think the hardest thing in terms of work is my online cooking school, the 60-Second Chef. I decided that I wanted to create a cooking school, which, much in the same way as HelloFresh does, was something that was completely non-intimidating, very accessible, and really taught the people who needed to learn how to cook. So that's why I came up with this idea of 60-Second Chef. All of the every technique you need to know to become a confident cook taught to you in 60 seconds. Give me an hour and a half of your time and I'll teach you 90 techniques or more, and you'll be a confident cook. You'll know everything that I know. But of course, when I first came up with that idea, I didn't know how to film or edit or any of that stuff. So I was thinking, well, who's going to do this for me? How am I going to afford it? And it seemed impossible. So I kind of procrastinated over that for a good 6 months. And then it got to the point where I realised if I want to make this happen, as per usual, I'm going to have to just bloody well do it myself. So I taught myself how to edit, how to film. But of course, you're teaching yourself how to do it. That's one thing, but it doesn't mean you're any good at it, and you're not good at it for quite some time. So I had to plow on through that and learning for about a year and a half, probably 2 years of learning, mostly from Malaysian teenagers who are apparently just amazing at this and put tutorial videos on YouTube about how to use Adobe Premiere. Like, these kids are like geniuses, and thank God they exist because they taught me everything I know. And And then that was it. And then I started the filming process and then the editing process. And that was another 18 months. I mean, basically from start to finish, that project was 4 years of my weekends, whilst we were also obviously starting HelloFresh. So it just consumed my life. And no one was telling me to do that apart from me. And so much like it was when I was working in the city and I spent all my weekends cooking in restaurants while all my mates were doing fun stuff. Again, it was just locked up at home, very solitary, just cracking on and thinking, no, this is worth it. This is going to be a success. And so, yeah, and then I got through to the end of it. And, you know, as you know, with writing a book, it's like it's such a labor of love. And there's not a lot of love at some points. But getting to the end of it, that feeling of, you know, it's not even about whether the thing is a success or not. For me, the greatest success in that is just having done it. And again, proving to myself that I can take something from an embryonic idea through to its conclusion.
I love the point you made about there's not a lot of love at some points. I think that's brilliant. Yeah. Is that what you're most proud of, the 60-second chef?
It's funny because I could give you the just the trotted out answer of, oh, yeah, I'm most proud of HelloFresh and I'm most proud of the 60-second chef. But honestly, I don't feel a great deal of pride about anything because I'm that person who constantly feels a sense of I haven't done enough yet. I need to do more. I need to work harder. I need to achieve more. And I don't feel like I've proved myself yet. I feel like I have a way to go. So, you know, I look at what HelloFresh has done and I look at the 60-second chef. Yeah, and there's a degree of pride, but I don't think I'm quite there yet. I think, you know what? I think I'll be most proud when I have children and I could stand back and think, yeah, look at that. That's something I did and wow. Like, I think the greatest pride a person can have, and if you'd asked me this question a few years ago, I would have probably given you such a different answer, and it shows I'm getting on. But to have a family and just to be able to stand back and say I have a wonderful, beautiful, loving family unit, that's something that someone can be so proud of, and something that, but I don't know, maybe I'm getting more sentimental in my more senior years. But I'm kind of looking forward to those things now. But I suppose because, you know, as you get a bit older, you just get a different sense of priorities, clearly. And so the things that I wanted so much previously, perhaps, you know, they've faded a little bit now.
I can honestly say from personal experience that all your suspicions about having a family are absolutely true. And I can honestly say that I don't think I would have had the drive, the focus, and the just kind of like raw determination to spend 3.5 years writing the book if my daughter had come along earlier. But now she's here, I find that she's the most fascinating thing in the world.
Yeah.
There's nothing that is even close.
Yeah.
And so that sense of drive that you have of not achieving enough, I think, I don't want to put words into your mouth or anything, but I suspect that will change.
Mm-hmm. Well, you see, what I do is I compartmentalize my life. So basically I've said to myself, I've given myself certain targets in terms of age. And I've said, right, by the time I'm 40, which is in a few years, I'll have achieved everything I need to achieve from a professional perspective. And then it'd be like, right, now it's time for a family. And I'm going to focus on that so that I won't necessarily have to, you know, compromise or feel like I've like had to give up or take my foot off the gas with one, because I'll just voluntarily take my foot off that gas and say, right, next thing.
So while we're getting down to philosophical stuff, tell us, how do you react when things go badly, and how do you react when things go well?
It depends if I've eaten or not. Genuinely, like if I haven't eaten and something goes badly, the wheels fall off. I mean, I'm not good. But if I'm in a situation of having been fed, I can be pretty pragmatic. I guess, as I say, when things are really bad, I think I do try to stand back and just think, right, this has happened, like, I've got to deal with it, and we're just going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. You know, it takes a real amount of resilience, for sure, to be able to just look at dire situations, something going wrong, and deal with it pragmatically. But I try to get to that place. You know, it doesn't always work. But I just, as I say, I have a dogged determination. So I just figure there's got to be a way out of this. And usually that way is just hard work. And you know, and I suppose not entertaining failure as an option, not entertaining the word no as the final answer. That's the thing for me. It's like I've been knocked back so many times for so many different things I've tried to do. But you just keep on plugging away because you have that inner belief that it's all going to work out. And actually, that's the thing. Like, I suppose the kind of the ultimate answer to this question is I can say that I've always been in this mindset that no matter what happens, I'll always be okay. That's my kind of default subconscious position, is that it's going to be okay. It's like a Disneyland. I call it my Disneyland mentality, that it's like I'm in a theme park, you know, so no matter how scary this ride is, it doesn't matter. It's going to be fine. I'm in a theme park. I'm on holiday. And so I believe that. And I think that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. How do I react to things that go well? I jump up in the air. I dance around. I sing. I go absolutely nuts. And I act like a child. And that's when something really exceptionally amazing or fun happens, and like that inner child just wants to burst out. But I must also say that a lot of times things go really, really well now. Things that if you'd have told me this was going to happen years ago, I wouldn't have even believed you. But now, because I've worked so hard for them, I do tend to take them for granted a little bit. Like I'll look at really big moments and perhaps not even recognize them because I'm suddenly like, tick that box, move on to the next thing that I haven't achieved yet. And that's a problem. And I'm trying to get better at that. I'm trying to get better at giving myself credit for the things that I have done well or have achieved. Because if you don't take the time to do that, then what's it all about? And you just find you're trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom of it. Got to take that time to say, like, step back and look at your achievements. And, you know, that's why a lot of people do journaling, is to write down, what have I achieved today? Like, let's list out 3 things that I did well today. Let's list out 3 things that I want to do better tomorrow, and what have you. But it's getting into that kind of mindset.
Okay, so when are you happiest?
I am happiest at about 3 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon, lying on my sofa, about to drift off into an afternoon nap. And to me, that seems like the most indulgent thing I can do with my time is in this schedule that I have, where I constantly feel like every minute of the day has to be filled with something productive. So actually, again, it's about sending that signal to your body and to your mind that says, you know what? No, I can do what I want, and I choose to take out like half an hour of my day, and I'm going to have a snooze. And it seems to me like such a luxury. And I love it. I suppose I'm most happy when it's just those moments of calm between the various storms. And the storms, you know, they're not negative storms. They're storms that I'm riding the currents, and I'm harnessing the winds of those storms, and I'm enjoying the experience, and it's exhilarating. But even when you're doing work that you love and it's exhilarating, it's still exhausting. It's as exhausting as anything, because you're still expending all of your energy. You're putting it all out there. So those moments of quiet are, you know, in the eye of the storm, I suppose, are the ones that I love. And I think a good example of it's in the morning. So I wake up in the morning, and the first thing that happens is 100 thoughts come into my head, and the voice which says, "You're not out of bed yet. Hang on, it's 8 o'clock. What do you mean you're still tired? You should be up by now. You should be working." And then, and you're late, and you need to hurry. Quick. All of this stuff, and you're like, whoa, hold on a minute. And then I get up, and I have a freezing cold shower, which is the first thing I do every day. And every day I dread it as much as I did the day before. It's like Groundhog Day, but I do it every day because it's the only thing that actually like blasts me awake. And then I'll try to make the time for half an hour of yoga and meditation. And suddenly, again, it sends a signal to me. It says, no, I'm taking back control of this day. I woke up, and all these thoughts came into my head, and I felt rushed, and I felt like, gotta go. And suddenly it's like, whoa, no, reset. I'm taking control of how I feel about today, and I'm going to just draw it all back in. And you know what? I've got to say that every day that starts with yoga and meditation is a better day. And I think people are now understanding this to be the case. Like 10 years ago and longer, yoga was still very much to preserve of people who didn't shave their armpits, and had a pretty liberal view on personal hygiene. At least that's the way it was perceived, right? Tree hugging hippies. But now it's, Lululemon and the likes have made it cool, and it's trendy. And, beyond that, it retains that thing it's always had, just that people didn't necessarily realize, which is that it's just really good for you physically and mentally. There's this breathing technique I do called Kapalabhati breathing, and it's this rapid intakes of breath that essentially hyperventilates you. It really oxygenates your blood. And once you do it, you get this rush of oxygen into your brain, which really clears your head. But it almost is... when I explain that, I just think, oh my God, people must be raising their eyebrows. But it kind of like just takes your mind away from the current situation. And it just completely, it's the ultimate meditation. It completely clears your mind, and you feel the sense of calm. It's really amazing.
And what's it called again?
Kapalabhati breathing. I learned it on a yoga retreat in Thailand that I went to last Christmas by myself. So I went away for 2 weeks, and I just went to this retreat and had just it was amazing, such cool people. Again, you go there and you meet these people. The wonderful thing about it is that I hate small talk. I'm just not good at it. I mean, I can be good at it if I have to be in given situations, but obviously it's just not fulfilling, and it's a drain on my energy. But I was talking to the people at these retreats, and you just get straight into interesting conversations. Why are you here? Because everyone has a reason, and they're like, well, I got into yoga because of this, and you're like, oh no way, yeah, I was thinking I was a bit like that too, and it's really cool.
Fascinating. That sounds good. I think I'll have to give that a try. So, do you think you're lucky?
No, I'm not lucky. I'm not lucky at all, because I don't believe in luck. I think pure luck, is winning the lottery, or bad luck is getting struck by lightning. I think everything else is about the effort that you're willing to put in. It's about from a mystical perspective, it's about positive energy, and it's about putting things out there to the universe and it being brought back to you. From a pragmatic perspective, if you're more inclined to think of things that way, it's a probability numbers game. So if I want to find an opportunity, say I'm a lawyer who wants to become a TV chef. That's not going to happen by luck. That's going to happen by getting up off my arse, not watching Coronation Street or EastEnders or whatever's on TV these days, getting out there at every opportunity, meeting people, letting them know what you do, being passionate about the thing that you want to get into, and just planting those seeds so that the probability that one of those seeds will blossom, that one of those people you meet will be the one that changes your life, will happen. And that's what I said to myself. Nobody found their dreams down the back of their sofa. And every night I would finish my work at Clifford Chance. I would go home, and these were nights when I wasn't cooking. This was even before the cooking had started. I would get changed, turn myself right back around, go straight back out the door, no matter how I felt. Because I said to myself, if I go out and I meet enough people and I tell them what I'm into and I'm passionate about it, eventually I will meet the person who changes the course of my life. That is how grandiose I think. No shame. And it's true. I met those people. I met Mark Burton, who's a friend of yours too. And in fact, he was one of those people that changed the course of my life, because I asked him about how he got into what he does, and he put me in contact with a few people, and it changed the whole direction. And that happens over and over again, like with my YouTube channel and wanting to get into television. I said to myself, no, I'm not going to shoehorn myself into some TV show like Big Brother or something to gain notoriety. To be fair, I did do one show. I'm not even going to mention the name of it, but it was just because it seemed like quite fun. Maybe. Oh, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I did win, but that TV show's haunting me, and it will haunt me for the rest of my days. But I did think if I do what I'm doing and I put videos up on YouTube, then eventually someone will come to me and say, hey, Patrick, we like what you're doing. We just want you to be yourself and do it on this show with us. And that's exactly what happened. I got an email through one day and it said, do you want to be in a TV show? And it said, I just saw a video of you cooking risotto on YouTube. Think you could be our man. What about it? And, and that was the beginning of that adventure. To go back to the question, am I lucky? No, I don't believe, I believe there's pure luck and there's pure bad luck. But I think everything else is about fortune. So whenever I talk about this stuff, I'm always very careful to say I'm very fortunate. And I'll say to other people, you're very fortunate, or we are very fortunate. But luck is almost to me an insult.
I like that. That's a good differentiation. Do you think about gratitude very often?
Yeah, I do. Probably not as often as I should. I'm trying to get better at it, but part of my routine in the morning is just saying thank you out loud for the things that I'm grateful for, like family, health, a job I love, for the ability to physically do the things I want to do, because I tell you what, we take that for granted, don't we, until we don't have that physical ability anymore. I used to write it in my journal as well, all the things I'm grateful for. I've slipped out of that habit. And again, I should probably get back into it. But at the very least, I think you need to kickstart your day with thinking about what you're grateful for. Maybe you even do it while you're brushing your teeth and you're just thinking about it in your head. And I think it's interesting. People get really intimidated by the idea of change, by yoga or meditation or gratitude or this and that and the other, but they don't realize that it doesn't have to be some massive full-on commitment. Like with meditation, for instance, you don't have to sit there in the lotus position for 20 minutes at a time for it to be something that's worthwhile. You can do it for 5 minutes and you'll still reap a benefit from it. Small incremental changes on a daily basis compound over time to create massive change and achievement. And if you're doing something for 5 minutes a day, well, you're still doing it for 35 minutes a week that you wouldn't have otherwise been doing it. And then over the course of a year, of course, that's a lot. So I think that that's important. I've gone on a tangent, but the point is, with gratitude or whatever it is you might want to do, slip it into your day in a place where otherwise you wouldn't be doing anything. And, it can make a big difference.
Just for the last few questions, we can sort of rattle through these, but what would you say to your 18-year-old self?
You are good enough. You can do this. You're going to be great. Don't worry. You're going to work it out. Don't doubt yourself. Have the courage of your convictions. Don't listen to the naysayers. Believe in yourself. You're good enough. You're worthy. I'll probably give him a hug too.
What's one book everyone should read?
Big question. I'm just finishing Massive Achievement right now by Brian Tracy, which is a really, really good book. It's a good book because it's got all sorts. I mean, the title is pretty dire. I think it could have been. It's a bit like literal, but it is a good book because it gives you lots of different advice on all of the different facets of mindset and like visualization and goal setting in pretty just straightforward language. I think it's a pretty good all-rounder, that one. Another book I'm always telling people about is The One Thing by Gary Keller, which is all about how you achieve your one thing in your day or in your week or your month or your year, or the one thing you want to achieve in your life. And it takes it at all of those different levels. A lot of it's about focus and protecting your time from time wasters, goal setting as well, stuff like that. That's a really good one. If I'm just going to fess up here and tell the truth, the first book that got me into all of this stuff in the first place, when I wanted to change my life, but I didn't really know how, was The Secret. And, eyes will roll at that because there is a lot of cheesy stuff in that book, but there's also a lot of really bite-sized nuggets of accessible wisdom that get you thinking in that mindset. And a lot of it's just very practical. Well, a lot of people talk about the universe and I'm into all of that anyway. So I'm pretty open-minded about all that stuff. But a lot of it just comes down to practical steps about how you map out your goals and what have you and break things down. So I learned a lot from that book too.
Are there any popular beliefs that you disagree with, or something that you see lots of people doing and you disagree with their behavior?
I have this thing about the cult of mediocrity. It's a cult that I believe it exists and is growing. It's one that I constantly fight against, and you will recognize people that are members of this cult because they're the ones who say, oh, I don't know about that. Have you thought of that though? Oh, I just don't think it can work. It's never been done before. That's just not the way things are done. Naysayers, basically. And so I suppose I'm answering the question from a much more general point of view. I think a lot of people just buy into this idea that it's okay to lead just a life that they're apathetic about. And I'm not judging people who, I didn't say people who are leading an average life, because that would be a judgmental thing. You don't have to lead a big life to be happy. You can have the most simple things. The people that have the most simple things are often the most happy. But you've got to be happy with what you've got. And if you're not, you've got to change it. And people who think that they should go through life, plod along and suffer through whatever it is they're suffering through, I don't agree with that. Because people with the worst circumstances, you hear constant stories about how they've achieved the greatest things. There really are no excuses. There might be some, extreme cases where there are reasons why you cannot get out of the situation you're in, but you've got to try.
Last question, who or what inspires you?
I'm just inspired by people who would battle adversity, face failure constantly, and they'll keep getting back up. They're the people that inspire me. Somebody said to me the other day, a few months ago, if there was one person in the world that you could have dinner with, who would it be? And I said, it's got to be Elon Musk. And they said, okay, yeah, good choice. And that was that, and I forgot about it. A week later, I got an email and it said, Patrick, Elon Musk is hosting a dinner in London tomorrow night. Would you like to come? And I looked around me as if what is going on? Is this some kind of candid camera joke? And it was it was legit. And it was an email from the Prince's Trust, who I do speeches for, and they were inviting me. So I went along. And then I met Elon and I said to him, listen, I just want you to know that the reason you inspire me is not because of how successful you are. It's because of how many times you failed and how many times you picked yourself up, dusted yourself off and carried on going. And that is more inspirational than any success.
Perfect. That's a perfect place to leave it. Thanks very much.
My pleasure.